All right. Well, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Christina Clayton, one of the co-directors at the Northwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. We are so grateful today to have our webinar on being safe, sane, and stable in turbulent times with Rebekah Demirel of Trauma Integration Programs. First, importantly, our land acknowledgement. We are cited and work with the Region 10 from HHS, and that includes Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. However, we also realize we are cited in Seattle for University of Washington, and we sit on the traditional lands of the Duwamish and Coast Salish peoples, past and present. We're also aware that with this virtual world, we're connecting with a lot of folks from other places. So with everyone here, we honor with gratitude the land itself and people who have stewarded it through generations. And there's a link in the chat if you'd like to see the stewards of your land. The MHTC Network, if you haven't heard of us, is a nationwide network that is supported by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, otherwise known as SAMHSA. Our network includes 10 regional centers, a National American Indian and Alaska Native Center, a National Hispanic Center, and Latino Center, and a network coordinating office. And there are also networks pretty much exactly the same for the addiction field and prevention field. We support resource development, dissemination, training, technical assistance, and workforce development for the mental health field or anyone working with mental health, which I think these days is most of us. Now a bit more about our Northwest MHTTC. We are based in the University of Washington School of Medicine in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences. Our goals for our region and for the network are to accelerate adoption and implementation of best practices, heighten awareness, knowledge, and skills of the workforce, foster alliances and address training needs, and ensure availability and delivery of free, publicly available training and TA like today. Our area of focus for the network is evidence-based practices for serious mental health issues such as psychosis, but we provide training on a variety of topics, and each year things include integrated care, suicide prevention, diversity and equity, school mental health, peer support, and trauma-informed, and others. And as I said, our target workforce is really anyone whose work touches the field of mental health in your work. We offer free training and technical assistance. We have self-paced online courses that are free. Everything we offer is free. Live events like this that we record and post, virtual learning communities as well. We also have a monthly newsletter and other announcements. So if you want to sign up for that, you'll look for our link at the end of the webinar. We have a resource library, research and practice briefs, and other on-demand content as well. To find out more, you can visit our website and sign up for our newsletter if you don't already get it, or follow us on social media. A little bit about language. The network created this slide a couple of years ago with the intention to always be mindful of using language that supports recovery. Of course, we want our approach always to foster respect and hope, and we promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is an ever-changing landscape. So we're just keeping that in mind. Next, a few logistics. We are using Poll Everywhere, and I personally find putting in this link that I think has already been put into the chat with your web browser is probably the easiest. You can download an app. You can also text this as your body of the text, NWMHTTC, to the number that you're texting, 22333. So we aren't doing that just this moment, but we'll get to it in just a couple of minutes. Housekeeping. Obviously, it's a large audience. Everyone's muted. You're not on video. The presentation is being recorded, and the recording and slides will be made available on our website where we have archived webinars, and you'll receive an email from Zoom tomorrow with a reminder for our survey, as well as a link to where we have our archived webinars. You'll also get an email in a week or two about how to access a certificate of attendance. We don't have formal CEUs, but you can usually use these certificates for something if that's useful to you. Now, for communicating, Zoom allows us to have both chat and Q&A features. I know everyone is probably expert at Zoom, but we just want to remind you for this event, chat is really for, experiencing technical issues, want to say hi, And maybe the poll everywhere isn't working for you, and so you can certainly chat your answer for that. However, if you have a question for Rebekah, we really want to use the Q&A feature for a couple of reasons. One, we will be curating and monitoring those throughout the presentation and answering those at the end. We also are working to generally produce a Q&A sheet and a resource sheet after every webinar. So if you put the question into the Q&A, it allows us to track that. And if we don't have time for your question, it is much easier for us to get an answer and get back to you through that resource sheet. If you put a question for Rebekah in the chat, we'll have to ask you to move it because it doesn't let us copy. I don't know why. Lastly, your feedback is really crucial to our work. So if you could please just take a couple minutes to respond to a short survey. Our team will share that link probably 15 minutes before we end, and you'll get an email reminder. We do have a requirement to conduct these surveys, but truly, we look at all of these feedback and answers every time. It helps the speaker, it helps our training team, and it helps keep the free training coming. Going quickly, SAMHSA sponsors this work, but this does not reflect any official position on this content. All right, well, we're so grateful that Rebekah is joining us today about staying safe, sane, and stable in these turbulent times. We are going to occasionally post links that maybe she shared that might be of interest to you, but let's see first who is in the audience today with a couple of quick polls. So you'll see the poll, there's actually 2 questions, so you'll want to scroll down. The first is, please choose what role best describes your role. We are limited to 10 answers, so I apologize. There's going to be a lot of others always, which I see coming in. And then what is your workplace setting? So scrolling down, I see people are answering. Let's see how that goes. I see a lot of behavioral health clinicians, case managers, education, and a lot of other, because obviously we need to have more answer options. Feel free to type your answer in the chat box if you have a different title, because it's always great to see what other things are out there. And as far as workplace, not surprising, a lot of behavioral health, education, nice to see some shelter and housing, criminal justice and corrections, some peer and hospital folks, so great, and then a lot of others. So feel free to chat in your other locations if we don't have one listed for you. Okay, so we've been going. Okay, it's ended. Okay, I think we're done. So yeah, not surprising, mostly behavioral health, case manager, and other, 32% other. We need some more options. And then same with settings. So it's helpful to know who's out there. Helps Rebekah also know who's in our audience. All right, so I think that has been shared and we will move on, and you can close out the little box if it's still showing up for you. All right. Oh, wow. You have already started doing the word cloud. That's fantastic. So please note, Rebekah is really grateful to just hear how everyone's feeling. And I am not at all surprised. I would have written tired too. Really happy to be here as well. So if you haven't had a chance to do the poll everywhere, please type in what's coming up for you. What are you feeling today? And then we can see how everyone's doing.
I love this part. This is like my favorite part.
It is. I want this to,
just to see.
I don't want that thing to black.
Hopeful, tired, grateful, scattered. I can relate.
And you can be on video too now, Rebekah, certainly.
Okay, great.
There you go. Yeah, I think I'll just share, I'm sure everyone's heard in the news, just everybody's brains are just tapped. You know, there's just so many things, and that's why it's so great to to have you here today of all days. I think,
That's
Rebekah,
good. We're going
so
to help
much.
everybody's brain today.
Yeah, and
Mine
body, because
too.
it's all connected. Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, you can keep answering. We won't close this poll, so if you want to type it in at any time, and I think we've been trying to grab a screenshot from the poll and sort of include that later on with the presentation stuff. So it's helpful just for me. I know seeing what everyone else is feeling. So let's get to some other great stuff. So, Rebekah Demirel, so excited to have you here. You are the founder and director of trauma integration programs, more than a decade of experience as an ambulance paramedic, 22 years as a paramedic trainer, 18 years of mental health counseling, specializing in traumatic stress. You're a licensed East Asian medicine practitioner and acupuncturist. Your unique skill set and experience are very informed, as you've shared, by your own traumatic childhood and teen years spent on the street and in the foster care system, which I know gives you a special familiarity and empathy for trauma and loss. So we're very grateful to have you. We're going to start out with a conversation. And so I will share this for just a minute, and then I will stop sharing so we can actually just talk. So thank you, Rebekah, for being here, and really, really, really great to see you. I'm so glad our paths crossed again, first off. I knew you way back when you're in Seattle. And then last year, when we got a special supplement to support provider well-being, I just knew exactly who to reach out to because of the kind of work you've done in the past. You have such an amazing journey that I know on your website, which we can put into the chat at some point, how do you stay inspired? You've helped people in so many ways with all these different roles, which I'm sure for you feel all very connected. But how do you stay inspired in this world of just all sorts of chaos?
For me, it's easy because I look around me and I do see that our world is pretty crazy, but I also see so many people working so very hard to help others. And, by the poll, I could see how many people are in behavioral health and social service. And if it wasn't for folks like you, I wouldn't be sitting where I am, because I had the greatest social worker who, when I was a homeless teen, just took my hand and said, okay, we're going to get through this, and stood by me. And I know that that's what folks all over the world are doing with others right now. And especially if that's one thing that COVID has taught us, and the climate crisis that we're in is teaching us, is that we need that. We need to learn how to stand by each other and help. And so I'm always inspired by that. And it's just that it warms my heart every day and keeps me going. People like you, Christina.
Oh, well, that's very sweet.
Amazing.
I think for people who've ever asked, wow, that's, I could never do that, or how do you do it? You've helped in so many ways, but I agree with this. Feeds us as well. This nurtures us as well. I think there's always got to be a limit. But when you emanate like just a light, I think that just really shines on folks. So that's it's just always great to have you here. So there is a lot going on with COVID and climate. And then also in thinking about other injustices, racial injustices, health disparities, which also COVID completely, shined an even bigger light. How do you think these issues intersect with a sense of being able to feel safe and heal and recover in whatever journey that means for them?
Well, we need to face things. And, the racial issues that have been going on for, hundreds of years, and have really been pinpoint right in our faces these days. And there needs to be a reckoning. And, James Baldwin, artist and poet and national treasure and activist, and he said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but change doesn't happen. Nothing happens. No change happens unless we face it. So this is what we're learning more and more these days. You know, people like me who are white are learning more and being educated about what people of color face and have been facing and continue to face. And so that is a big role that we have right now, is just to face that and to learn. And to learn the price of our privilege and profit. You know, the price to us is that we have had to become unconscious to some of the pain that's been caused from our privilege and profit. And so that numbing and that unconsciousness is actually, it further hurts us. It hurts us and it hurts others and keeps us unconscious. So what my work is to help people become conscious of how we feel this in our bodies, and what our thoughts are, and what our beliefs and what our emotions are around things like racism. And that educates us on how to do better and learn more and become clear and speak the truth. So to me, it's all connected. It's all very much connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate those insights, that when some groups talk about safety and feeling comfortable or recovery, you know, it has different meaning for many groups who have never felt safe, you know, who don't feel safe now. And so I think that's just always really helpful to think about. And we had a recent webinar where we were talking about the stress that everyone's been under and how it just really heightens your emotions. And so I know in thinking about that sort of mind-body connection, it's going to affect everything on every side. And, you know, just keeping that in mind as we become more conscious, as you said, it will bring things up. And so we need to keep that in mind. So how can we put this together? This is a lot. And I appreciate, you know, you're always bringing up the issues of how we can really do better to feel a sense of safety and start to heal, to help others. So how can we do this when the world is so chaotic and still changing and still evolving, and, you know, just really just a lot of whoppers lately? And how do we take this forward in our daily life?
The short answer is one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one conversation at a time, one day at a time. And, you know, it's this, the problems that we have in our world have taken, you know, thousands of years to create. And so it's going to take time to undo a lot of that. And I know, you know, the feeling is, no, I want it now and I want it yesterday. And that's just part of how our nervous system feels when it's stressed, that it feels like we can never have what we really want. And we can be cynical about it because our hope has been crushed so often. But this is why we're here today. This is why we're here, is just to spend some time together and to, and just to remember why we're all here, and one breath at a time. That's all we're going to do for the next hour or so together, everybody.
Yeah. Somehow I knew, Rebekah, you would just bring it right back to just be here now, right? And so thank you so much. I really appreciate all your insights. All right, well, we will now let you take it from here.
Oh,
So
really? I
thank
get
you,
to share my screen.
Rebekah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Christina.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Okay, here we go, sharing the screen. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is me. And I would like to start with my own territorial acknowledgement. I live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish people here in Victoria, British Columbia. This is their land. It has always been their land, and I am a visitor here, and I am so grateful for how they've taken care of this beautiful land in which I get to live. So before we even go any further, I want to invite you to just really, as much as you can, be present today for this presentation. If you have a phone that's maybe sitting off to the side, or another computer on the go, if you possibly can, turn those off or just turn them away so that you don't have to multitask. We multitask so much in our lives. And, today I'm going to be talking about how we feel safe, sane, and stable in these crazy times that we're in. And so in order to really kind of absorb some of this great information and some of these great resources I want to share with you, it would be wonderful if you could just take this time just for you. So, and I always have problems with my slides. There I go. So I would like to begin by sharing a couple of quotes. These are from a couple of Indigenous elders, and one of them is, "The longest journey you'll ever make is the journey from your head to your heart," by Chief Phil Lane. And so with what we're going to talk about today, I want to invite you to, we're thinking of questions to ask and thinking of how this is all landing with us, but keep on remembering your heart and our connection, our mutual connection here together, and our mutual connection with the rest of the world. And then another great quote by Art Solomon is, "To heal a nation, we have to first heal the individuals, the families, and the communities." So that's again something that we're working on today, is in order to do the work that we do to help others, we have to continuously keep healing ourselves. And it's a wonderful journey to be on, and one that I've been on for many, many years, and I hope to be on my whole life. So what the heck, what the bleep is going on here? So we've got polarity. We see this all around us. How we've got, black versus white, and Republican versus Democrat, and South versus North, and, vax versus unvax. There's all these things that we see that are really, really strongly shown to us these days. And the rigidity that the different sides, so to speak, are holding, and it's just becoming, sooner or later, something that's rigid is going to crack. So I'm starting to really see cracks in these things, which to me is growth. And politics, oh my God, everything is politicized, isn't it? And the rage, and a lot of times rage is covering up our sheer fear and terror about things. And the cynicism, the crushed hope of, well, nothing's ever going to get better, so I'm just going to be cynical about it. And the violence. So what happens now? What can we do about all these things? Well, I have some ideas I want to share with you. So as always, in these presentations that I do, I like to bring in lots of self-care. And so I want to start by sharing an exercise. Some of you have done this before. It's a breathing exercise, the 618 breathing. And this is such a great thing to keep in your back pocket. Before I started the webinar today, I did a little 618 breathing on my own, because it's always a little stressful doing these webinars for me, but fun nonetheless. So we're going to be exhaling a little bit longer than inhaling, and that allows something called our vagus nerve to upregulate our parasympathetic rest and digest part of our nervous system. So I'm going to get a little nerdy on you today. I'm going to be talking about the nervous system, and our vagus nerve especially is my favorite thing to talk about. But let's just do this exercise together. So if you're sitting down, you can even lay down when you're doing this exercise. But if you're sitting, just get yourself grounded. Feel your seat in your chair. It's good if your posture is straight. Feel your feet on the ground or wherever they're touching. You can maybe close your eyes and allow your jaw to kind of relax. So your tongue is connected to your bottom jaw. Let that just flop down. And we're going to breathe in through our nose for 6, hold for 1 second, and breathe out through our nose for 8 counts. So we'll do a few sessions together. I'm going to count for the first one, and breathing all of the breathings through your nose. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold for 1, and exhale through your nose for 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And let's do a couple more just on our own without me counting. Go ahead. Thank you. We did 3 rounds there. Thank you for doing that. Very important, this exercise. Use it yourself. Cortisol levels are highest. That's one of our stress hormones when we wake up in the morning. So often I'll wake up and just with an inexplicable kind of anxiety feeling. And so I'll do some of this breathing. It's like I say, keep it in your back pocket, so you can use it with your clients and use it with friends and family and use it yourself. This is all about looking after ourselves so we can share that with others. So part of what's going on with our world is we are not taking the time to feel. We're so busy with our day-to-day lives and seemingly getting busier and busier all the time that we're distracted from our emotions. And part of what COVID has taught us is we don't have a lot of the usual distractions like travel, for instance, and going to the bar. And a lot of things have been curtailed so that we're kind of forced to go back to our feelings. And so just something to be aware of, that sometimes we keep busy because we are trying to distract from our feelings. And my thing to you is just to keep an eye on that and see that it's not a habit that you're in to avoid feelings. I do it too. So, when I say you, I mean me. And what we do in the stress response is we get into our sympathetic stress response when we feel stress, when we feel threatened, and we fight and we run. And if we can't do either of those things, we collapse and freeze. So this is part of what happens in our nervous system. Yes, the sympathetic nervous system is responsible for what we always call the fight and flight response, but there's also the collapse response that can happen when we feel like we can't do either of those things, to run or fight. And our nervous system also teaches us how to, whether we should defend or whether we can relax. So our brain chemistry is developed when we're little babies and when we're children, and as our brains and our brain chemistry is growing. And it is also influenced strongly by how we are nurtured or not nurtured. And as our life goes on and we have chronic stress, that makes us hypervigilant so that we can't really relax when we really need to. Our nervous systems get kind of set in that fight or flight response. And it sometimes, instead of, because that's very uncomfortable to be in, we use distractions, we use substances, we use behaviors to numb ourselves. And then the problem is that if we numb ourselves, we can't even feel good. So we get numbed to not just what's uncomfortable, but also what's really wonderful in our lives. So we need to face it and enliven. So I'm going to share some really great stuff with you today. The first part of caring for ourselves is observing ourselves. And observation, quantum physics literally teaches us that if an experiment is being observed, that actually changes the outcome of the experiment. So we are one big experiment here. And as we observe our thoughts and observe our emotions and our sensations, especially in our bodies, that's the first step in our healing. That's the first step of self-care, is actually not distracting, not numbing, but observing and taking the time. And yeah, it's uncomfortable, but you get used to it. And this is how we actually heal. So healing, actually, there's a little bit of uncomfortableness in healing, but it's the first step. It does take courage and resolve to say to yourself, yeah, I'm just going to observe. I'm going to take the time. And when we notice and we're conscious of what we are feeling, this is also how we track our healing. So the way we felt at this point in time, journaling is another great way of observing and tracking. The way I felt, what I thought, what was going on in my body at this point in time is now different than in this point in time. And so I'm tracking my healing over time. And that's why observation is a very, very important part of our healing. I'm going to get into some different terminology than I have used before. And a lot of it is from, where's this book here? One of the resources, Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. So I'm going to use some of his great terminology. This is a wonderful book. It's very sciencey, and it's just a great reference. So it might not be one you want to sit down and read before bed, because it's pretty heavy duty, but it's a wonderful reference to have on your shelf. So van der Kolk talks about the smoke alarm and the watchtower and two parts of our brain. So don't tune out on me here. This is interesting stuff, and it's really good knowledge to have, but I'm going to get a little sciencey on you for a minute here. The amygdala is what he calls our smoke alarm of our brains. It tells us when there's danger, and it works alongside with another part of the brain called the hippocampus. And it's an unconscious limbic function, and it happens automatically and very quickly when there's a perceived threat. And then something else, we're gonna call it the MPFC, the medial prefrontal cortex, is what he refers to as the watchtower. It's located right above our eyes in the prefrontal part of our brain, and it regulates our decisions and our emotions and our responses to stimuli. Okay, I'm going to break this down for you. So the amygdala, the smoke alarm. So when we have a threat and we detect a threat, and it could be anything, and it may not be an actual threat to our life, but we have different ways of filtering things. And so if our amygdala is going off, it means that something is scary for us. So it sends an instant message to engage our adrenal glands, little triangular things on top of our kidneys, and that produces adrenaline and gets the whole fight or flight response going. So the response in our bodies, it happens so quickly, we may be like on the run, on the move before we even know what's going on. That's how fast the amygdala, the smoke alarm, works. And the MPFC, the watchtower, controls our stress response. It does all kinds of things like regulating our emotions and helping us make rational choices and assessing the emotional responses of others. Jesus, that person angry at me, how do I assess that? So the MPFC is working on all that. It is not as quick to respond as the smoke alarm, the amygdala. And the MPFC gets disrupted by chronic stress and substance disorder, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we may not even assess danger accurately. This may be going off when there's actually no danger to us. So why do these things get disrupted? How come we're not accurately judging whether something is safe or not safe? We'll talk about that in a minute. Another part of the brain, this is the last nerdy part I'm going to talk about, is the thalamus, and van der Kolk calls this the gatekeeper. So the job of the thalamus is to collect and filter our sensory information. So what am I feeling? What am I smelling? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? And it tells us what information can be ignored or which is important for our safety. So a few minutes ago, I was hearing some hammering going on outside. And so my thalamus is telling me, no, that's just Buddy nailing on his stairs next door. It's nothing that I need to be alerted about, right? However, in post-traumatic stress disorder, the thalamus isn't working so well. So the floodgates of our nervous system, especially the thalamus, are wide open, and there's this whole sensory overload that happens, and our thalamus is not able to discern what is safe and what is not safe. So everything feels unsafe to us. Having talked about a whole bunch of nervous system stuff, and maybe you're feeling a little bit activated, I thought it might be a great time to share with you another exercise that I've recently discovered. I want to share with you another of the resources. This book, look at all my things that I've been referencing in it. Activate Your Vagus Nerve, that's in the list of resources. And there's all kinds of great exercises to soothe our nervous systems. So again, this one involves the ear. So sit or lay down, get quiet and relax, feel your seat in your chair. Always good to try to ground yourself a little bit before doing any exercises for your nervous system. So have a look at the picture of the ear, find your ear canal, and slip your finger just above the little ridge into this nice little pocket just above it. So you got your ear canal, just slip over the ridge and you got a little pocket there. That is the concha. That's where your finger is going to go. So we're just going to gently massage this in tiny circles with our fingertips. Seems like a really weird thing to do, right? So remember I was talking about the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve, which communicates with our parasympathetic rest and digest nervous system. And this vagus nerve travels through the ear, the skin of the ear. And this is one of the spots. And I wonder if it's the same for dogs and cats, because my cat loves her ears being touched. I think most animals do. Isn't that a nice thing? And you can do it in both your ears. Also your ear lobe. If you kind of, and being very gentle and just kind of moving the skin around. The ear lobe is another part of the ear where the vagus nerve travels through, even the top of your ear. Taking your time, breathing, letting your nervous system unwind. Isn't that lovely? I love that. Yeah, so another great one to have in your pocket to do and share and use. So back to the nervous system, it gets disrupted. And a supple, well-regulated nervous system can relax and kind of spring back from being stressed after a stressful episode. And a well-regulated nervous system can accurately discern whether something is safe or not safe, or a threat or not. But a chronically stressed nervous system, especially our MPFC, remember, medial prefrontal cortex, I'll just call it the MPFC. To varying degrees, what will happen when our MPFC is chronically stressed is we have less impulse control, less, we can't regulate our emotions, our memory is not as good, our behavior and decisions are not rational, and it makes it very difficult to have deep relationships with others when our nervous system is all disrupted. So with substance use, long-term substance use disorder, our MPFC becomes very much disrupted and damaged. And it can be repaired, but we have problems with response inhibition, emotional regulation, motivation to do what's good for us, awareness of what's going on around us, and awareness of others' feelings, and our memory is disrupted, and our decision-making process is all disrupted. So these are some of the things, and I know many of you work with folks that have varying degrees of mental health issues and substance use disorder. And so it's not just a matter of, come on, you got to improve your behavior. We need to do more motivational interviews. No, it's that there's a brain chemistry issue because these parts of the brain have been damaged by the long-term substance use disorder. And the experiences we have do shape our brain. So the experience of trauma alters our perception of risk versus safety. And it helps us recover our capacity to feel safe. And our entire nervous system is involved in our experience. And as we heal, we learn new ways of relating based on how our nervous system, the messages we're getting from our nervous system. And we just keep testing those, seeing how they work. Okay, I'm a silly goose. Yes, I know it's not vagus, baby, but I couldn't resist. That the vagus nerve is one of the things I really want to share with you today, because it's about the healing. you know, we know all the issues that are out there. I wanted to give you some information about the nervous system and just more information for you. But I really want to share with you some ways that we can heal our nervous systems using our vagus nerve and using that for our healing. First of all, the vagus nerve is it's a cranial nervous, the longest cranial nervous, number 10. There's 12 cranial nerves. And it communicates with the brain and the gut. And it's a long cranial nerve, goes through the face and the ears and the throat and the lungs and the breathing. And when we relax and we do deep breathing, it actually gets our vagus nerve going to communicate to, it's okay, baby, just rest and digest. Enacting and toning our vagus nerve also decreases our inflammation in the body. So I've talked about psychoneuroimmunology previously, the science of how what we think and what we feel affects our nervous systems. But the vagus nerve is all about getting in there and soothing that and healing that. The vagus nerve lowers our heart rate and our blood pressure, and it helps us manage our fear. And it helps us recover from the scary situations. So the more healthy and toned our vagus nerve is, the quicker we can spring back, the more resilience we have. So who doesn't need that, right? So this is the best picture I could find that wasn't too anatomical about the path of the healing vagus nerve. So it does affect our tongue. As I mentioned, it affects our ear, it affects our throat, our pharynx, our swallowing, our vocal cords, our lungs, our heart, our liver, spleen, stomach, pancreas, kidney, large and small intestine. So all of these parts of our body are influenced by the vagus nerve. And by the way, they are all influenced by the stress response. So we need the vagus nerve to help reset and get us out of the fight or flight response and back into that rest and digest. This is one of my favorite parts from van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, is the way he talks about healing from the bottom up and the top down. And we're not talking about economics here. So bear with me and let me explain that engaging the body in healing allows our physiological manifestations of stress to reset. And he calls this from the bottom up. So that's the body is the bottom up. And then examining our thoughts and beliefs and behaviors allows our mental and emotional patterns to shift. That impacts our physiological manifestations of stress. Remember the psychoneuroimmunology. So examining our thoughts and beliefs and behaviors is from the top down. Very cool. I just love that explanation. With the top down and observing the mind, and this is all about psychology and psychiatry and counseling and all of this work, is where we're looking at our thoughts and how our thoughts affect our emotions. And remember, we have to have the guts to face it, to face what our thoughts are, to face what our beliefs are, to face what our biases are, right? And to look at where those came from and to see how those thoughts and emotions are affecting our nervous system. We start to notice that. We start to connect that with the body. And our MPFC is disrupted in stress and trauma. And so as we continue to examine our thoughts, we can actually notice our disruptions and maladaptive ways of thinking. And so this is why if we take a little time each day to examine what we think, what we said, what people's responses were, it brings a fresh perspective and helps us change old habits. And again, journaling, this is why I feel that journaling is such an important thing. And the bottom up, just going to grab a little drink of water here. The bottom up's where we engage the body and where we take deep breaths. And we do all of these little things to, right, playing with my ear, to eat. We can even play with our ears while we take deep breaths and do the 618 breathing at the same time, right? So our nervous systems tell our body how to respond. And so when we work directly with our bodies, that is working from the bottom up and telling our nervous system it's okay. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to help my parasympathetic and nervous system with the vagus nerve engage. And I'm going to do things with my body like maybe yoga and stretching and some other things I'm going to share with you. Looking at our heart rate and our circulation, and what we smell and our vision, and enlivening all of these things and becoming aware of all of these things and all of the different therapies that we can do to engage our body is how we heal from the bottom up. So we do both of these things. Bottom up, top down. This is where, you know, I'm in a couple of choirs, and I work online these days. Nobody's doing it in person, so it's not as good, but it's kind of fun. And the next exercise, if I know there's several hundred of you out there that are on this call, and that's wonderful. And I wish we could all hear each other and have the microphones open, but I don't think we can do that without things kind of crashing and being crazy. So I'm hoping that you're somewhere that you can make some sound and we can tune our voices together. So this is just a great exercise, since the vagus nerve passes through our vocal cords and our throats, and sound is very important. Let's tune our voices by settling in our seat, feeling your seat in the chair, letting your jaw relax. Take a few deep breaths, close your eyes. So we're going to inhale it through our nose and allow our breath to move deep into our bellies. And then we're going to exhale with our mouth closed, but we're going to make a low kind of buzzing sound. So the sound, listen to me for a second, it's going to be like a bee, like kind of like you're blowing in a bottle, and it's kind of sounds like a bee, so it's going to buzz on your lips. So let's just do this together. So you're going to inhale through your nose and that reminds me, I live by the ocean, and when it's really foggy in the fall and winter, you hear the boats out in the harbor. They have to make a sound as they're passing by one another. So it sounds like that a little bit, but yeah, tuning your voice like that, and especially if you can tune it with other people and making that particular sound where your throat is engaged and your breathing is engaged. You can even do that while you're playing with your ear and do the 618 and have the 8 be the zzz coming out. And then you've got the trifecta of a beautiful set of self-care exercises. Now, my cat is scratching at the door, so I'm hoping my husband will hear that. He's just going to scratch the carpet apart. Okay, now get that out of the way. You know, I talk about meditation, and meditation is a very, very valuable thing. And it may be something that you roll your eyes at and think, oh God, now another person's telling me I should meditate. And it's another thing to put on my to-do list. So I want to just reset that for you and reframe that and just say how meditation, first of all, has been a profound healing to me, a healing in my nervous system and in my entire body and my entire being. And I've been doing it every day for many years, for like 20 years now. And If you're thinking of starting a meditation practice, or if this is something that you're already doing and you're maybe feeling like you're struggling with, let me reframe that by saying that if you can think of it as being the most gentle, private, light, the lightest, most gentle, sweet thing in your entire day, then maybe that'll change it for you. That it can just be a revelation to take this time just for you, not for anybody else. Like, I don't use a device to time, when my meditation should start or finish. I just like to look at the clock. Okay, it's 8 a.m. I close my eyes, and when they open again, it's whatever. It might be 10 minutes, it might be 40 minutes, and your body will tell you. And so, yeah, if you can make it something light, it's an incredibly useful, helpful, healing thing for your nervous system. So I want to just inspire you again to think about adding this to some of the ways you take care of yourself. The vagus nerve, you're going to talk about it again, that when we tonify, when we tone our vagus nerve, and we do that by doing a lot of these exercises, here's a whole bunch of great things that happen in your body. Your blood sugar will get regulated. Your risk of stroke will be reduced. Risk of cardiovascular disease. It lowers your blood pressure, improves your digestion, better production of stomach and your basic digestive enzymes, reduces migraine headaches. I mean, we need our vagus nerve. We need to go to Vegas. And our higher vagal tone is associated with our better mood and better availability to serve the people that we want to serve, and to be present for our friends and family and our loved ones, and especially for ourselves, and less anxiety and more resilience to stress. So who doesn't want all that? I'm in. So again, some of the things that we can do is to do your breathing exercises, to hum, to sing. I am a silly goose and I sing all the time, and it is such a beautiful thing. Something I really miss is being with people in the same room, but sing to yourself, sing songs from the radio, sing in the shower, splashing freezing cold water on your face or your last part of your shower. You know, this whole thing of standing under the freezing cold shower, honestly, I'm not there yet. One day maybe I will be, and some people do that, and it's really good for your vagal nerve toning. But even putting your face and the top of your head under the freezing cold water at the end of your shower is a great way to tone your vagus nerve. Sitting, in mainly meditation, eating your yogurt, even balancing your gut microbiome, not migrome, microbiome, is very helpful to toning your I can't talk anymore, your vagus nerve. So do all of these things. That's a shortcut. I want to share an exercise that I've done before. And I'm not sure how my time is because I have lost my clock, but
you're fine.
Oh,
you're
good.
fine.
My time, okay. So I want to share this exercise. This little voice came from somewhere. Thank you, Christina. That EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is a wonderful therapy for healing trauma. It's one of the exercises that Bessel van der Kolk talks about in Body Keeps the Score, one of the healing things for our vagus nerves. And it's a psychotherapeutic method developed by American psychologist Francine Shapiro in the mid-1980s, and it's used with complex trauma and PTSD. So keep that in mind for yourself, for your clients, that EMDR is a very helpful therapy. Now, I have an exercise. It is not EMDR, but it's based on that because it does involve using our eyes. And some of you may have done this exercise before, so I'm happy to share it with you again. A good friend, when I showed it to him, he called it the little birds exercise, and you'll see why. So yeah, let's just do this together. Sit quietly. I'll just remind you that all these exercises that when we just ground ourselves and become present, then the exercise we do is much more effective and useful for us. So sit quietly with your spine straight, both your hands palms up in your lap and your eyes closed, and just allow your jaw to really relax. Feel your seat in your chair. Okay, I'm going to guide you through this so you can close your eyes. And I want you to think of a negative belief that you might have about yourself. Might be something about the way you look, your appearance, your ability, something about your family, something about your gender, something about your race, something negative that was said to you at one time and that sometimes crops up in your thoughts and feels hurtful and limiting. Okay, so that right there sits right in the palm of your right hand. And I want you to very gently close your fingers around that like you're holding a little tiny bird in your hand. Okay. And now in your left hand, hold the very opposite of that belief. So I'll just share with you, in my right hand, I'm holding, if I don't do it, nobody will. I don't have any help. That's the negative belief that comes up sometimes. So in my left hand, I'm holding, I'm supported. I have lots of help. I'm cared for. Okay. And I'm holding that like a tiny bird in my left hand. Okay, got it? Got the tiny birds? Now with your eyes closed, taking a nice deep breath or two, roll your eyes, just roll your eyeballs in your head towards your right hand and feel that negative belief. Feel where it is in your body. Feel how it tightens. I can feel it even in my throat right now as I think about that. Tightens my throat. And now I'm going to roll my eyes to my left hand. So go ahead and roll your eyes to your left hand, and the very opposite of that belief. And feel that. Experience that. Makes me take a deeper breath. Okay. And now on your own time, just do a few cycles of rolling your eyes to your right hand, feeling that limiting belief, and rolling your eyes to your left hand and feeling the opposite of that belief. You're rolling your eyes to your right hand, feel it in your left hand. Just keep going for a while. And breathing, stopping to feel, and letting your eyes roll back. Let's do a couple more cycles. Last one. Now let your eyes just kind of settle in the middle. And gently open the fingers of your right hand and just let that little bird fly away. That little bird's got the little note of your limiting belief in its beak. It's just flying away. There you go. And gently open the fingers of your left hand and let that little bird fly away. Thank you. Take a couple breaths and open your eyes. Thank you for doing that. You know, I have to remember to do that exercise for myself more often because it's awesome and I made it up and And I feel happy about that. And I love sharing it with people. And so finally, I hope this has all been helpful and interesting, and it's things that you can use. I have all these great resources. The Body Keeps the Score, Activate Your Vagus Nerve, Ijoma Oluo, beautiful book. So you want to talk about race? This one's helped me a lot. Resma Menaken's My Grandmother's Hands. Oh my God, what a beautiful book. So helpful. Robert Sapolsky's almost 800-page book, Behave, also a very technical reference, but really great to have on your bookshelf. And he studied primates in Africa for, over 3 decades, and is a professor of neurology at Stanford University. So a great person. And just finally, to finish up here, before I take some questions from you, is integrating. That's why I call the work that I do trauma integration, because integrating everything that we've experienced in our lives is how we make sense of it and how we become whole. Bring all the parts of us together, all the good, the bad, the ugly, what's been difficult, what's been joyful, and we observe and we try new things, and we allow ourselves to change, and we allow others to change. I've heard people say, oh, people never change. No, people do change. I've changed. I am not the person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the person I was 5 years ago. And I'm constantly changing and constantly healing. Thank God. Because when we integrate and attend to ourselves by inquiring and observing and noticing and engaging and connecting, it gives us time to heal. And we can all heal. I believe nobody and nothing is beyond redemption. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Rebekah. That was amazing, as always. A lot of wonderful things in the chat. I will just say to one of the questions, can we receive a list of the books that were referenced? You may have sent those to us, and if you didn't, you can send us an email and we will make sure that those books are put on the product page. So you found this event probably through our event page. We will put, as we've shared, the recording and the slides and other resources that you've sent. So we'll put that on the event product page, excuse me, where the recording will be in the slides.
Yeah, I believe that all those
problem.
references are on the.
Yeah, so perfect. So perfect. We do have a couple of questions.
Good.
So first, and this was pretty early in it, and I thought this was a great question. All are great questions, but is there a reason for both in and out through the nose? That someone said that we call this paced breathing in DBT skills groups and loves it. Just wondered if you had some information about that.
Short answer is I don't know. I think, because we can regulate our breathing more easily through our nose, whereas if we use our mouth, it's not as easy to regulate. It probably has to do with the vagus nerve pathway. So that might be a more technical question than I have the answer to. But it's thank you for asking it, because I'll look that up so that I know.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, even in exercise types of settings, people can hold their breath, right? And I've heard sort of exhale, don't worry about the inhale, your body will do that. So I think it's also really telling that you focus so much on the exhale and slowing that down.
Right.
So I just think there's also got to be all sorts of wisdom in why these breathing exercises work. Another question, any special considerations for techniques for young people and kids whose brains are still developing?
These exercises, especially the one like the ear one and the breathing one, are really useful for kids too. Anything, and you can make it fun, right? I'm goofy anyway, so I can make it fun. And if I can do it, you can. And if we do it with a child, I think that it also shows that it's safe and it's fun, and I can do it, so you can do it. That also brings up that when we're working with clients, whether they are, really young people or adults, that if we do our own work and we habitually use these kinds of exercises, then it really, it's more natural and authentic when we show it to somebody else. So, yeah, just keep using it.
Yeah. Well, those are the questions that we had, but I did want to maybe start by asking you for takeaways. You've shared so much light, so much wisdom. You always shine with all of this stuff. And I did want to say, someone said this is one of the best ones we've ever done. So kudos again. But when you think of the biggest things to take away from the lessons that you shared, I wanted to share some that I was grabbing from ideas and people in the chat. But what are your biggest takeaways from today?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, as always, I just keep learning. Somebody once said that we teach what we most need to learn. And that is so true for me. I humbly share this with you because it's what I need to learn. And I'm not on some kind of pedestal here. I'm right there with everybody as a fellow human being who has been living through crazy times. And and I need help too. So I continue learning, I have the privilege and the honor to be able to share this with you. And I think, when we see other people suffering and we help, that's a way to end our suffering. So I consider it such a gift to be able to offer this, because it helps clarify it and solidify it and make it more true for me, and just keep me accountable and telling the truth and being clear. It's an ongoing process. So I'm so grateful.
Yeah. And I assume, like I used to think way back when, that if you were teaching an exercise class, you're getting exercise probably. So this helps, to teach is to experience these things, I imagine. And it keeps it alive and fresh. And I appreciate that, perspective. Well, here are some things that I noticed. Before that, I will answer this question or ask you, any chance we could get a model of how we describe the land we are on? So sort of our land acknowledgement. So what I can say from our perspective is, I need to check if our land acknowledgement is somewhere on our website. We have the slide, we have some of the words. It's been an evolving process for me to sort of acknowledge where we sit, especially in this virtual world. But I'm happy to write down some of the words we've used, and maybe Rebekah, you could send us the same. You definitely say it in a very beautiful way. So I'm assuming you could.
Sorry, Christine, I was going to say something that's evolving too. Like for me, I'm wanting to change it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know if people have seen in the news that in Canada, we had a residential school system for many years, and where children were taken, Native children were taken from their homes and brought to these Catholic schools. And many of them died. I mean, they were abused and starved and mistreated, and many of them died. And so they're starting to find graves, like unmarked graves. And there's 139 residential schools in Canada officially. Only, I think, 2 or maybe 3 of them have been looked at so far with radar that can look underground. And over 215 unmarked graves of children have been found here. So there's a huge reckoning going on right now with Aboriginal people in Canada. And I believe there's a lot of the same as existed in the US as well. So there needs to be more reckoning.
And I just want to acknowledge some stuff in the chat about how to do a land acknowledgement. And I don't want to go off on too big of a tangent, but I think it's very important. And we certainly at the Northwest MHTTC do not feel like we have the best version of what this could be like. And I'm always looking as well for different ways to acknowledge the obvious and to talk about the atrocities and to not let this be an invisible history, and so I think any suggestions are always helpful, and I appreciate that commentary as well.
Yeah, it seems like nothing, we can't say enough, and we don't want to just be, a talking
Right.
head about it either. So we need to really feel it in our bodies, I think, to come up with the authentic, real words to speak.
Mm-hmm. And not everyone, knows that history that you shared. I happened to get that at my undergraduate college, but it was a pretty liberal, progressive college. And so still to this day, it's just hard to imagine what you're describing. But there's a lot of history and people can certainly learn more. Just a shout out, though, there is a National American Indian and Alaska Native MHTTC and PTTC and ATTC. And I think they're one and the same, but you can find that on the website or just Google it. But they put out just amazing products and events and resources. And that's their mission is they aren't in a region, they are covering the whole nation. And they have a lot. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So that's also a really good resource. I was just finding a land acknowledgement done by them yesterday and looking at their language to sort of see, it's obviously spoken differently when you are from that perspective. So anyway, I want to say thank you for all your wisdom, which I know is ever growing and ever changing for folks listening. And I think the things that stuck out for me and others that I could see in the chat are, how do we go forth to carry out some feeling of the safety and security and wholeness and healing? And I really appreciate to change, we must face things. And that takes courage and is uncomfortable, but it's truly the only way to make that change. And then breathing, the simple, pure power of breathing with, if you don't notice if you're breathing, you probably might start there. Right. Appreciate that. This Vegas baby stuff is great. We love that. There's so many puns we could go with that, but the learning about the nervous system and the nerve and our responses to stress, and really to be present, right? To buffer that is to truly just be. It's a very simple and sometimes frustrating answer because you just have to do it and you have to practice. That's why it's called a meditation practice, I imagine.
Just be a human.
Yeah, just be a human, practice being human. And then the tools that you shared with us were really powerful of, practicing self-care, calming yourself in the moment, the ear, the tiny birds, the breathing, the EMDR. So that's always really helpful. So I appreciate all of that. And thank you again. And I want to just do a couple of things before we go here. And see if I can share my screen appropriate. It's hard to do everything at once, isn't it? Multitask, that's all we do in these things, isn't it true? Okay, so hopefully you're seeing takeaways, but I'm going to move on to our sort of leaving slides. Why isn't it working? Of course, it's not going to work. Well, there we go. Oh, it just starts going on its own. Okay, your feedback is really important. So please, you've probably seen the eval link in the chat. So please take a couple of minutes if you loved this topic, or if you didn't, please share that too. We're happy to hear all your feedback. See if it's going to click again. It may not. There we go. Okay. You can join us, not us, but for some other folks that are doing great events coming up. And so again, you can always find those at the MHTTC website. Let's connect. If you want to find out more, please connect with us, get our resource newsletter, see our website and that sort of thing. And then just thanks for joining us. I hope everybody feels like a little more inspired and calm for the rest of your weekend. So thank you again, Rebekah. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate everybody taking the time today.
Thank you,
And,
Christina.
of
Mwah.
course.
Much
Okay.
love.
All right. You too.
Everybody. Mwah.
And we'll leave the room open here for a little bit. I will stop my camera, but if you have any things you want to grab from the chat, we'll leave it open for a couple more minutes. Thank you, Rebekah. Take care.
Thanks again.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.